She did not remember the first day the iron was locked around her body. She only remembered the weight. It was always there. Cold in the morning, burning hot after long shifts, pressing against her hips and legs like a reminder that she did not belong to herself. The elders called it protection. The guards called it law. Karith learned very early that it was neither. It was control. She was 12 years old when they forced her to wear the iron pants. At that age, her legs were thin, her hands small, but her eyes were already sharp. She had always asked too many questions. Why machines hummed the way they did? Why lights flickered only at certain hours? Why the factory floor obeyed patterns no one else seemed to notice? The overseers did not like questions. They said her kind had dangerous minds. Minds that could disrupt order. Minds that could not be trusted to move freely. So they gave her iron. The iron pants were not just metal. They were a living system bonded to her nervous signals, reading muscle intent before movement could fully form. When she tried to run, the iron stiffened. When she tried to kick, it locked. When fear spiked, it tightened, squeezing just enough to remind her who was in charge. The pain was never sharp. It was dull, constant, designed to be endured, not resisted. 18 years passed like that. Karith grew, but the iron grew with her. It adjusted, recalibrated, tightened its authority as her body matured. By the time she was 30, the iron felt like a second skeleton, heavy, unforgiving, always watching. She worked in Orbital Facility 7, a massive ring-shaped structure that floated above the gas giant relos. The factory never slept. Machines sang day and night, building starship parts, weapons, energy cores, things Karith was never allowed to name. Her job was maintenance. She crawled through narrow tunnels, climbed ladders with careful, slow steps, and repaired systems older than her people's recorded history. The irony was not lost on her. The Empire trusted her mind with its most valuable machines, but did not trust her legs to move freely. She learned to live quietly. She did not protest. Protests brought punishment. She did not cry. Crying wasted energy. She watched instead. She listened. She memorized. Machines spoke a language, and Karith understood it better than most overseers ever could. She noticed which systems overheated during peak cycles, which energy flows were inefficient, which control algorithms repeated unnecessary checks. She noticed the iron pants, too. Every night when she returned to her sleeping pod, she would sit still and focus on the faint internal hum. The restraints were not silent. They processed data constantly, predictive loops, safety overrides, compliance checks. The iron thought it understood her. It did not. 18 years of silence taught Karith patience. 18 years of restriction sharpened her mind in ways freedom never could. Then the humans arrived. No one expected them. The Empire had ruled the region for centuries. Their technology was dominant, their fleets vast, their laws unquestioned. Smaller species adapted or vanished. Most chose adaptation. Humans came without bowing. Their ship docked at Facility 7 under a trade agreement signed light years away. Officially, they were observers and partners. Unofficially, they were unknown variables. Karith first saw them from a maintenance platform above Dock Bay 3. She was repairing a damaged sensor array when the airlock opened and the human delegation stepped out. They looked fragile. That was her first thought. They had no visible armor, no restraints. Their bodies were soft in places where hers had hardened from years of labor. They moved freely, casually, as if the gravity itself obeyed them. One human stood out. He was taller than the others, with dark hair and eyes that never stopped moving. He scanned the dock not with fear, but with interest, like someone walking into a puzzle instead of a threat. His name, Karith would later learn, was Elias Ward. At that moment, he was just a human. The overseers greeted the humans with rehearsed politeness. The guards stood alert, weapons visible. Workers like Karith were expected to keep their heads down and continue working. She did, but she watched from the corner of her vision. The human called Elias looked at everything. The walls, the lights, the machines. And then for just a second his gaze stopped. On her, it was brief, barely noticeable, but Karith felt it like a disturbance in the air. Humans were not supposed to look at workers, especially not restrained ones. She lowered her eyes quickly. Still, something shifted. Over the next few cycles, the humans toured the facility. They asked questions. Too many questions, some overseers whispered. They requested system access logs, maintenance histories, energy efficiency reports. Karith was assigned to repair a cooling unit near one of the observation corridors. As she worked, she heard unfamiliar footsteps stop nearby. "Excuse me," a voice said. She froze. Workers were not spoken to directly. Slowly, she turned her head. The iron allowed that much movement. Elias stood there holding a data pad. He smiled slightly, not in mockery, but in something Karith did not recognize immediately: curiosity. "I'm Elias," he said. "Systems specialist. I noticed this unit keeps overheating." Karith hesitated. Speaking without permission could earn punishment. "Yes," she said quietly. "The vent alignment is off by 3 degrees." Elias blinked. "You noticed that?" "Yes." He looked at the unit, then back at her. His eyes drifted downward to the iron. His smile faded. He did not comment, not yet. "Thank you," he said after a moment. "I'll report it." As he walked away, Karith's heart raced, not from fear, from something else. That night she could not sleep. The iron hummed as usual, but her thoughts were louder. Humans, free movement. The way Elias had looked at the restraints, not with acceptance but confusion. Over the next days, their paths crossed again and again, always brief, always careful. Elias began asking for her input on small issues, minor recalibrations, diagnostic checks he never ordered. He asked, no one had ever asked her before. He learned quickly that Karith's understanding of the facility was unmatched. She knew its rhythms, its flaws, its hidden efficiencies. And he noticed the iron. One cycle, during a routine inspection, he finally spoke. "Does that hurt?" he asked quietly, gesturing subtly. Karith stiffened. "It is required." "That's not what I asked." She hesitated. Honesty was dangerous. "Yes," she said. "All the time." Elias frowned. He pulled up data on his pad, scanning the restraint's external interface. His brows knitted together. "This design is old," he muttered. Old, the word echoed in her mind. Humans had abandoned similar technologies centuries ago. That was what Elias was thinking, though he did not say it aloud. Control through restriction was inefficient. Fear-based systems always failed eventually. Karith watched him carefully. "It cannot be removed." "Everything can be removed," Elias said without thinking. Then he stopped. "I mean," he corrected, glancing around, "hypothetically." She almost laughed, almost. Later that cycle, Elias sat alone in the human ship systems room. He reviewed the scanned data again and again. The iron pants were advanced in some ways, but clumsy in others. They relied on predictive compliance algorithms, assumed limited creativity, assumed obedience. A dangerous assumption. He saw it then, a logic flaw so simple it hurt. The restraints checked for threat conditions before allowing release. But the threat parameters were outdated, rigid, built on fear models that no longer matched reality. They were not unbreakable. They were poorly questioned. Elias leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Interfering would be risky. Earth was new here. A single incident could shatter fragile diplomacy, but doing nothing meant accepting a system built on quiet suffering. Humans had never been good at that. Back on the factory floor, Karith worked as she always had. Slowly, carefully, watching. She felt something she had not felt in years, hope. It was dangerous, fragile, but it was there. She did not know that her life was about to change. She did not know that the iron, which had defined her existence for 18 long years, was already being challenged by a mind that refused to accept it. And somewhere in the silent code of the restraints, a flaw waited patiently to be seen. Elias did not sleep that cycle. He sat alone in the quiet systems room of the human ship, the low hum of engines around him, staring at lines of code projected in the air. The restraint system's logic repeated again and again, like a closed circle that no one had ever tried to step outside. The Empire had built it to enforce obedience, not to understand minds. That was the mistake. Humans had learned long ago that control systems based on fear always became lazy. They assumed people would not challenge them. They assumed silence meant acceptance. Elias knew better. He ran simulations carefully, slowly, making sure nothing would trigger alarms. The unlock sequence he designed did not break the restraints. It did not damage them. It simply spoke to them in a language they were never taught to question. Compliance through permission. By the time the ship's lights dimmed for rest hours, Elias had his answer. It would work. The question was whether he should do it. The next cycle began like any other at Orbital Facility 7. Workers moved through corridors, machines powered up, overseers monitored displays with board precision. Karith reported to her assigned sector. She carried her tools, her posture calm, her steps measured by iron. She did not know why her heart felt heavy. Elias was already there. He stood near an energy junction, pretending to review diagnostics. When he saw her, he gave a small nod. Maintenance check, he said aloud for the benefit of cameras. Yes, Carith replied. They worked in silence for several minutes. The air felt tense, stretched thin. Finally, Elias spoke softly. There's going to be a power recalibration in this sector today, Carith nodded. There always is. This one will last longer, he said. If anything unusual happens, don't panic. Her hands paused for half a second. Why would something unusual happen? She asked. Elias met her eyes. Because sometimes systems change. He stepped back and tapped his communicator. Moments later, the lights dimmed, not fully, just enough to signal recalibration. Carith felt the iron react instantly. It tightened, running internal checks, verifying control parameters. She held her breath. Elias moved closer. His hand hovered near the restraint's interface, hidden from cameras by the angle of a large conduit. I need you to trust me, he said quietly. Trust. The word felt strange, heavy. She nodded once. Elias activated the sequence. For one long second, nothing happened. Then the iron stopped humming. The pressure vanished. Carith gasped. The restraints loosened, seams shifting, locks disengaging with soft mechanical sounds she had never heard before. The iron pants separated, sliding away from her legs like a shell opening. She staggered. Elias caught her arm. I've got you, he said. She stood there shaking, staring down at her own legs. They felt light, too light. For the first time in 18 years, there was no resistance when she moved, no silent voice telling her no. She took one step, then another. Tears blurred her vision, but she did not fall. She stood straighter than she ever had before. The alarm came seconds later. Red lights flashed. Overseer voices echoed through the sector. Restraint breach detected. Guards rushed in. Elias stepped back, hands raised, calm. Carith felt fear surge, but something else rose with it. Clarity. The restraints had not only limited her body, they had limited her access. With them gone, the factory's systems responded to her presence differently. Interfaces lit up. Data streams opened. The machines recognized her fully. She moved, not to attack, not to flee. She placed her hand on the nearest control panel. The factory listened. Energy flows adjusted. Conveyor systems slowed. Production lines paused one by one, not in chaos, but in perfect order. Guards shouted. Overseers demanded compliance, but the factory did not obey them. It obeyed her. Across the facility, machines entered safe mode. No explosions, no damage, just silence. Elias activated his communicator. Earth vessel broadcasting, he said calmly. Live feed. The human ship transmitted everything. The restraint unlock. The guards' confusion. The factory shutting down under Carith's control. Across the Empire's networks, screens flickered to life. Workers in other facilities watched in disbelief. They saw a restraint being stand free. They saw no violence, only truth. The Empire tried to cut the feed. They failed. Humans were very good at keeping signals alive. Carith turned to the overseers. You said the iron was necessary, she said, her voice steady. You said we were dangerous, she gestured to the quiet factory. This is what we can do when you stop fearing us. The overseers had no answer. Hours later, negotiations erupted across channels. The Empire accused Earth of interference. Earth responded with evidence. Data. Footage, testimonies. The restraint system was exposed for what it was. Outdated, cruel, unnecessary. Public pressure grew. Other species demanded reviews. Workers questioned laws they had never been allowed to question before. The Empire, for the first time in centuries, hesitated. Carith sat in a quiet room aboard the human ship. A medic checked her vitals gently. How do you feel? The medic asked. Carith flexed her legs, still amazed by the simple act. Tired, she said, but alive. Elias stood nearby. You don't have to go back, he said. Earth will grant you asylum. She looked at him. Others are still wearing iron, he nodded. What do you want to do? He asked. She stood. I want to help unlock them. And she did. Over the following cycles, Carith worked with human engineers and sympathetic systems across the Empire. They did not force change. They offered solutions. Nonviolent, efficient, better. Factories reopened under new management. Restraints were deactivated one by one under observation and transparency. There was fear, but there was also relief. The Empire did not fall in flames. It changed in silence. One evening, Elias stood in orbit watching Facility 7 glow again, not as a prison. As a place of work chosen freely, Carith stood beside him. Why did you help me? She asked. Elias smiled softly. Because humans don't like locks, he said. Especially the ones no one remembers why they exist. Below them, lights spread across the station. Freedom, once unlocked, moved faster than any fleet, and the galaxy learned something new that day. Humans did not conquer empires, they taught them how to let go.